No, I think I'm good.
Good. Yeah.
My wife? All right.
Oh, thanks.
All right, let's do it. What's up, Dolphins fans? Chris Perkins, along with David Furones. I'm your Dolphins columnist for the Sun Sentinel. He is your Dolphins beat writer for the Sun Sentinel. And hey, the NFL draft a few weeks away. Dolphins don't have a first-round pick for the second consecutive season, but look, that's all right. Starting lineups pretty much set on both sides of the ball. Probably no room for rookie starters, although we'll see if they can wiggle one or two in there. We're going to take a look at the depth chart in this episode of Dolphins Deep Dive and see what's needed next. We're also going to talk about the owners' meetings. David Furones was out there in Phoenix for that, so we'll check in with him and see what Mike McDaniel told us. The Dolphins are in a win-now mode. That plan is full speed ahead. Do you like that plan? Why or why not? We're going to talk about that. Also, health, still a major concern for the Dolphins. Not a whole lot can be done for that. Tua's taking the jiu-jitsu lessons. You can give these guys some off-season work, but we're going to talk about whether these possible health concerns have been properly addressed in the off-season. Also, the Dolphins have made lots of moves this offseason. They got Vic Fangio, they got Jalen Ramsey, they got Mike White. Which moves do you like best and why? And speaking of Mike White, can there really be a Dolphins-Jets rivalry when the Dolphins have taken Braxton Berrios, Mike White, Dan Feeney, three of the most personable guys from the New York Jets? How can we hate the Jets? We like these guys they just gave us. A lot to talk about this week. Let's dive in. All right, Furones, you were at the owners' meetings, and we're going to start right there. You talked to Mike McDaniel. What was the number one takeaway for you out of the conversations with Mike McDaniel out there?
Yeah, it was great to attend that event at the Arizona Biltmore in Phoenix. Spent some time with Mike McDaniel. He had a big 30-minute media session like every NFL head coach does. So they had the AFC head coaches one morning, NFC head coaches the next morning. Really put out a nice breakfast for the whole media. It's a great event, really, because every head coach is there, mostly every owner, general manager there. So you see them kind of mingling. A lot of agents go and talk to the general managers about certain things still going on. You can sort of like the combine and sort of the nightlife of just going out and then hearing different conversations. There's a nice big Monday night party in the middle of the event where everyone's out there, including media. So get to actually just spend some time to talk to Mike McDaniel, other Dolphins personnel off the record a little bit, get to know him, and it's really just a great experience. So between that 30-minute conversation, then also another one that myself and another reporter had separately with Mike McDaniel, I think the biggest thing, especially last week, as we saw Ravens star quarterback Lamar Jackson make his trade request from Baltimore public, Mike McDaniel squashed that right away. He remains committed to that idea, like he has said, like general manager Chris Greer has said on record, that the Dolphins are committed to Tua Tagovailoa for 2023, and then obviously now 2024 with that fifth-year option that they solidified and exercised very early in that process. Didn't even go up against deadline or anything like that. So sort of reaffirming that. And then just cool to see Mike McDaniel and Stephen Ross interact a little bit. I think that's something that we don't get to see a lot. I know one of our former colleagues, Adam Beasley, and myself, we had an observation we tweeted out about how you can really see how McDaniel and Ross sort of mesh well together. So they have a sort of a bond, and I like the way they kind of seem to work together, the way they gel. So you remember when Stephen Ross fired Brian Flores, and then he noted the communication and collaboration that he felt didn't work well with Flores. And they went a total 180 with the hire of McDaniel, someone who was more on the personable side. And I think you sort of saw that in just some of the off to the side interactions that you kind of witness. out there. And aside from that, it was cool to just hear from other coaches, other people around the league. Like I posted a story and video of Sean McVay, the Rams coach, who knows Mike McDaniel from time together in Washington, knows Jalen Ramsey from just coaching him these last few years in LA with the Rams. And he says these two personalities, very unique personalities, they're going to gel very well together in Miami. So I think that excites a lot of Dolphins fans. A coach that knows both of them really saying that about these two personalities working together.
Yeah, and you know what, Furones, one other thing about those owners' meetings, I like the owners' meetings. That's probably my favorite postseason gathering among the combine owners' meetings and the Senior Bowl, because at the owners' meetings, you also get better time with every coach. They set up, each coach has a table set up. And look, we're a team where the Dolphins I'm talking about, where Zach Taylor, the former Dolphins quarterbacks coach, is the head coach at Cincinnati. Dan Campbell, the former Dolphins tight ends coach and interim head coach, is the head coach at Detroit. So you can make your way around that room and see some people and see some former Dolphins people and reunite with them, and just being able to check in with other coaches and see what they think face to face. The ability to ask them a question, without the post game pressure or that kind of situation. It's really an invaluable resource. Let's get back to Lamar Jackson for a quick second, though, Furones. Dave Hyde, our columnist, wrote a few weeks ago that the Dolphins should do due diligence on Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson, that it's just being a responsible franchise to kind of kick the tires on those guys. The Dolphins, to our knowledge, never really did that. They are dug in, committed to Tua, and I take my hat off to them for that. But is that organizational malpractice? Should you look? Both Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson could make the Dolphins a better team next year, probably better than Tua. If you're talking Tom Brady, maybe not. But Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson, yes. The Dolphins have chosen to do this because they like Tua, they're committed to Tua, and they want to show Tua, the team, and the world that Tua is our guy. I think they did the right thing. They weren't going to. First of all, they're not going to pay Lamar Jackson his extension, right? The $230 million guaranteed. So while you kick the tires, or that's what we believe that Lamar wants, something close to what Deshaun Watson got. So you can kick the tires, but it's kind of fruitless. And Aaron Rodgers, well, I think Aaron would have come here. He didn't need to demand any receivers, right? When you got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, you don't need to start bringing in guys.
Or maybe he'd limit it to one. Maybe he'd limit it to one request.
Right, exactly. But I do think the Dolphins did the right thing. You would have liked to see them kick the tires on those two other quarterbacks. But for what? Really, for what? It probably would have been a waste of time. Did the Dolphins do the right thing by sticking with Tua and not really, even as far as we know, looking at any other quarterbacks?
Yeah, in a fantasy world, you start thinking of, oh my God, if you put Lamar Jackson on the field with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in a run game and this and that, just imagine the possibilities. Sure, your mind can go to those places, but in reality, like you said, then yeah, you have a quarterback who you need to make sure he feels as welcome as possible. That's something that the Dolphins have wanted to emphasize pretty much since Mike McDaniel got there, is show Tua that you have this confidence in him, and that would be the way that you get the best version of Tua Tagovailoa going forward. So I think they want to show him that sort of confidence that they have in him as a quarterback. And then how would you do that if you're also kicking the tires on Lamar Jackson, and then it comes out that you are checking in on possible scenarios of bringing a Lamar Jackson or Aaron Rodgers in there? How would that play with Tua Tagovailoa and his psyche when he's hearing one thing that you guys are so committed, and then it turns out to be something else? So I give them credit for sticking true to their word. They say it publicly, and then it showed that they mean it. The actions spoke louder than the words there.
Yep. And so, which was the headline or the first line of your story, I believe, from out there.
I was wondering where I got that from.
Exactly. All right, so Furones, look, man.
The lack of originality over here. Just
no. Look, that reinforces that it was a great lead. That's what it does. That's what it does. All right, Furones, look, the starting lineups are we were saying that we wanted to look at the Dolphins starters and the starting lineup and see where things are, see where rookies have a opportunity to earn starting jobs. And when you look at the Dolphins starting lineup, Furones, maybe at left guard with Liam Eichenberg, but you do have Robert Jones there to compete for the starting job. At right tackle, you have Austin Jackson. We'll see if Brandon Shell gets re-signed to compete, but Kendall Lamb is coming back. He can compete there. I would have liked to have seen an upgrade at the running back position. Raheem Mostert is 30 years old, but you do have Jeff Wilson Jr., so you do have two guys. What do you think about the offensive depth chart and really kind of what I'm getting at here? I'm backing into it. Are the Dolphins sticking with too many of the same starters from a 9-8 roster that had some injury issues? And while we're on offense, we're talking about Tua Tagovailoa and Teron Armstead with the injury issues. Should they be shaking things up a little bit more just offensively for now?
Well, another story that I got from the annual meeting is Mike McDaniel talking about how he wants to give these offensive linemen, young ones that have now played 2-3 years. Obviously, we're talking about Liam Eichenberg and Austin Jackson, the left guard and right tackle, in question as the sort of two spots that remain in flux, if you will. We know the other three positions are solidified with Teron Armstead at left tackle, Connor Williams at center, and Robert Hunt at right guard. And Mike McDaniel feels it's very important to give those players an opportunity to have a second year in the system. He mentioned Laken Tomlinson in San Francisco, how critical that second year was for him. He's a former first-round pick. They traded a fifth-rounder for him, and then that second year in San Francisco, they turned a guy who they didn't give him the opportunity to continue to flourish in Detroit, and then converted him into an eventual Pro Bowler who has gotten 2 contracts since then, now with the Jets. So that was a great example I think he gave in my extensive coverage from NFL owners meetings that you can go back and look at sunsentinel.com/Dolphins and find those headlines. So I thought that was a key sticking point, that Mike McDaniel really feels it's important to give guys a second year in this offense. So I think that's kind of some of his thinking with why a bigger move or a big move wasn't made for a right tackle at this moment, that we know the Dolphins aren't done yet. That's another thing that Mike McDaniel has made clear in his recent comments. And also left guard, just bringing in a Dan Feeney, someone who, it's not a big time acquisition, like you're not spending a bunch of money like they maybe could have with Mike McGlinchey at right tackle. So they didn't go that route. They felt the money was better spent elsewhere. And where did they spend the money? Then we're going to get to the defense and a little bit Jalen Ramsey taking on his contract in that trade. So it's a matter of which one would you have preferred. Obviously, you can't just throw big money at every position. So you have to sort of make some of these decisions, and we'll see how that plays out. But at least there will be some competition. We know they're not done yet. So Dan Feeney comes in. Robert Jones is there for competition. Potentially a Lester Cotton, who started coming off the practice squad, started the playoff game in Buffalo. So you have someone will emerge there. You hope it's Liam Eichenberg taking that next step. But if not, then that means hopefully someone else beat him out and really excelled through OTAs, mini camp, and training camp. And then right tackle, of course, if Austin Jackson can now stay healthy, that was a big thing last year. And then you need him to perform on the field to take that next step now going into year 4, which will be immense for him as a 2020 first-round pick, same draft as Tua Tagovailoa and Noah Benogany. So now, where could a potential starter come about in the draft? Now, maybe you're still hoping that they look on the offensive line with either that second or third round pick, which is kind of where you focus on if you think about the draft. They don't have a first rounder. The second and third, those day 2 picks, then they don't have another pick until the 6th round. So maybe tight end. There's a lot of second round tight end options that could go there. And you just gave Durham Smythe an extension, but that is a possibility where you let Mike Gesicki walk in free agency, and then maybe one of those tight ends in the 2nd round could intrigue the Dolphins as a potential starting option to get mixed in there.
Yeah, and one other headline that you have from out there, which was a very good story, was the backup quarterback situation, where I believe Mike McDaniel said he wants to see a competition between Mike White and Skylar Thompson. And very good story because, Backup quarterback is a position that I would like to see, or I would have liked to have seen get addressed differently. And that's just with more experience, because Tua doesn't have a lot of experience. Mike White doesn't have a lot of experience. Skylar Thompson doesn't have a lot of experience. And this is a win now team that's built to make a deep playoff run, Super Bowl appearance, Super Bowl victory. I'm not sure that you are well equipped behind Tua Tagovailoa. But that's the plan. And by the way, we'll get into this later, but the Dolphins get more money after June 1st with the Byron Jones release. But I'm not looking at backup quarterback I think they're set right there. And they're going to let this competition play out. So, and again, nothing is done yet. None of these answers are final that the Dolphins are giving us right now. But offensively, I would like to see backup quarterback, backup left tackle, starting running back addressed more aggressively. Your thoughts on the backup quarterback do you like the situation? And Mike White is a good guy, local kid. I have nothing against him. It's the experience that I'm missing that I would like to see. Your thoughts on backup quarterback, Furones?
Yeah, cheaper option than last year going with Teddy Bridgewater, who was someone with that starting experience. But then you had a season where he didn't come out of either start that he made in place of Tua Tagovailoa healthy. So you still had to dip into your third string quarterback. So I think kind of probably the organizational thought process was, well, boy, if we're going to pay big money and then backup quarterback isn't available either, once you already have Tua Tagovailoa go down, then maybe you go with a Mike White who, hey, he's toughed it out with those that rib injury, trying to play through that. And Mike White, hey, he's viable to go in and give you a standout game like he did in his first start coming off the bench in both 2021 and 2022. So he can just surprise you every now and then he'll have his high highs and his low lows. Then he'll have like a 0 touchdown, 4 interception game, or another game where he completes 40% of passes, and like the Seattle elimination loss for the Jets the penultimate week last year, where the Jets couldn't do anything offensively. You got your ups and downs with Mike White, but and then sort of have someone that's a little closer in caliber to Skylar Thompson, where now they'll go compete. And Thompson, while he did have some rough outings his first year, he did manage a game to get the Dolphins into the playoffs, got some very valuable experience where they hung close in Buffalo, although he only completed 40% of passes in that game, threw 2 interceptions. But tremendous experience for a 7th-round rookie to see that type of environment. It's only really him and Brock Purdy that are getting that kind of experience as rookies. And really, I mean, how long has it been since you saw a similar story to that?
Yep. By the way, Furones, this is the second straight appearance on the show you've used penultimate. That's like a tell me you went to college without telling me you went to college.
So I've used it in this ultimate episode and the penultimate episode. Excellent. All right. I'm trying to remember which week is, because now there's an extra week, so it's like you play 17 games, week 18, week 17. So I was just like second to last, penultimate. Right.
Exactly. That's incredible. Get us a little education while we're on Dolphins Deep Dive. I love it. All right, Furones, let's look at this defense here. I love this defense. I absolutely love this defense. On the front line, Christian Wilkins, Zach Sealer, Raekwon Davis. The inside linebackers, David Long Jr., Jerome Baker. Outside linebackers, Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips. In the secondary, at the corners, Xavier Howard, Jalen Ramsey. At the safeties, Javon Holland, Brandon Jones. At the third corner, you could have Kader Kohu or Nick Needham. At the other safety, opposite Javon Holland, you could have Deshaun Elliott. You've got Malik Reed out there at the outside linebacker. You've also got Andrew Van Ginkel. Seems to be a lot of depth. The David Long injury situation, he's missed 6 games each of the last 2 years due to hamstring injuries. Whatever. And look, let me say this also. I agree with Chris Greer on when he said that the injury issues aren't going to deter us from getting quality players. And look, Bradley Chubb could be an injury issue guy, right? David Long, Teron Armstead, Tua, Raheem Mostert. I don't care. I really don't. I agree. Let's go for it. Let's, these 3 and 4 year plans where the quarterback quarterback gets injured, and then you fire the coach, and now you got to get a new GM because he didn't handpick the quarterback and the head coach, and you keep going in this circle. Screw it. Let's push all our cards to the table, or push all our chips to the middle of the table, right? And I'm not a poker player, obviously. I'm not.
Yeah, I think that's called a fold if you push
right,
the cards to the middle of the table.
Exactly. That's
so are you all in or are you folding?
Right, that's my philosophy. That's not Chris Greer, thank goodness. But I really do like this defense. It's the David Long acquisition is that risky. And listen, we know that all the injured guys, they don't come back 100%. So I don't know how Nick Needham's going to look. I don't know how Brandon Jones is going to look. But wisely, you do have other players. And so that I really do like this defense and what they've done. Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator. If we're talking starting jobs for rookies on this defense, I don't think you have much, do you? I mean, maybe one of the defensive line spots, maybe, but I don't think there's much for a rookie here. What do you see from this defense, what they've done, and what they need to do, Furones?
Yeah, what I do like is two of those spots where you have someone coming off injury or who, because you have all these really solid starters all across the board, and then maybe the few spots where you might have some questions. Now you have another guy that can compete with that player who happens to also be coming off injury. So we're talking about Brandon Jones as a strong safety. Now you bring in a Deshaun Elliott who can work to compete, two Texas guys, be that second safety with Javon Holland, and you can mix around a lot with that there. And now it would be an adjustment for Jones. He really fit Josh Boyer's defense well as the blitzing safety. Not something that he wanted to be known as per se, but he really did excel in that role. And you saw him in the box. He was actually the Dolphins' leading tackler when he went down for the year last year. So you see him active in there. Now it might be more traditional safety play under Vic Fangio's defense with the traditional either two high looks, quarters coverage, cover 4, even cover 6. So now that'll be an adjustment for Brandon Jones. Deshaun Elliott could come in, and that's a hand-picked free agent for Fangio. So might be a little bit of an advantage for him with the defense. But we know what Jones is capable of doing. So that'll give him an opportunity to show that he is versatile, scheme versatile. And then with Cater Kohu now giving yourself another option in that nickel, where you also have Nick Needham coming back. We saw how well he was playing the years before this, and then now he'll have some competition with the nickel corner spot, which now you have Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard on opposite ends. You don't have to have a Cater Kohu play on the boundary and really be that starting second corner. And then also don't count out Emmanuel Ogbah, which we don't really think of in like that starting role. If you think of Raekwon Davis as the nose, and then Christian Wilkins and Zach Sealer as the 3-4 defensive tackles with Chubb and Phillips on the edges, then you could also have a lot of packages where Ogbah is at defensive end, and either Raekwon Davis is coming out, or maybe they still bring in another nose that could rotate in because the Dolphins aren't bringing back John Jenkins. So some versatility up front there with the packages that Vic Fangio can present.
On paper, which unit is better right now? I think the defense is. I really do. What do you think?
Ooh, it's close. Yeah, on paper. Boy, yeah. I mean, I look at this defense and I just say on paper they should, because at every level they are very good. The D line with Wilkins and Sealer, linebacker now with Long getting in there as long as he stays healthy, and potentially as long as Jerome Baker is still sticking around. His contract did become guaranteed March 19th, but I mean, he could really benefit from Fangio's scheme as well. And with the edges, and now with Ramsey and Howard, if X has a bounce back year, boy, on paper I would say there might be fewer holes there, although you have on the offense the star tandem of probably best in the league at wide receiver of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but you still do have some question marks on the offensive line. So I know, like, you wanted to see them make a bigger move at running back, although I do like the combination of Mostert and Wilson with McDaniel in this scheme, the familiarity aspect, and that they were able to get him for cheaper. But man, on paper, it might just be that way. Defense.
It could be. It's going to be an interesting season, and really that leads us into our next segment here, Furones. Are the Dolphins wise to be in this win now and possibly pay later mode? You know me, I love it. I absolutely love it. These 3 and 4 year plans, they get interrupted. You have injuries. You have all kinds. Well, when you're talking quarterbacks, well, the offensive line wasn't great. Well, they didn't have good receivers. Well, the defense never gave them a good chance. They couldn't get off the field on third downs and blah, 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 always playing from behind. Screw all that stuff. Okay, let's go for it right now. 2-year plan. We saw it work for the Rams, right? Now, they're paying now. But who cares? I don't care. You got yourself a ring. That's what it's all about. If you have to pay for the next 4 years, who cares? That's what the Dolphins do anyway. They have 4-year stretches without playoff appearances. So if you have a ring on your finger, that makes that much more easy to digest. I like what the stars in this I guess win now alignment are doing. Chris Greer, Mike McDaniel, Tua. The co-stars, I like what they're doing, right? Senior VP Brandon Shore, then Tyreek Hill, Ron Armstead, Bradley Chubb, Xavier Howard. Now, call these people the stars and the co-stars. Greer, McDaniel, and Tua are the 3 people in the organization most responsible for winning. And then the others, Brandon Shore is very crucial with Chris Greer as a senior vice president. And then Tyreek Hill, Ron Armstead, Bradley Chubb, Xavier Howard. These are veteran guys. They've got Pro Bowl pedigree. And I know that you have some other guys.
Jalen Ramsey now.
Yeah, Christian Wilkins, Jalen Phillips, Javon Holland, Jalen Waddle. They're next on the list. They haven't. They're arriving. I think these other guys have arrived, but I like the star players and what they've done so far. And so what do you think about the core as we look? This year and next year are really the years that you want to get to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. Are the stars aligned? Do they have the right core people here, the people that I just named, or who else would you even add to that list maybe?
Yeah, and really it's part of even a greater plan than just the next 2 years or whatever. It's which you can take it from this point, maybe 2-3 year plan, whatever it'll be in this, as you said, win now, potentially pay later, like the way the Rams are doing right now. So that's why Jalen Ramsey is available. It's because of the salary cap situation that the Rams put themselves in. But with that same F them picks that they were saying about the Rams, and now that Chris Greer is operating with and trading for these guys, maybe the Dolphins do have to pay later. But if you look at the Rams situation, they did win a ring that way. So it puts yourself in that position where you are competing, and that's really what you can ask for, is that you compete, put yourself in the best position to win, and then sure, maybe something goes wrong, but at least you gave yourself a chance. You put yourself in position. You took care of what you can take care of. Control what you can control, as is so often said in the NFL. So, but it is part of sort of a bigger plan. We think of the years prior, going back to 2019, that it was. We don't want to say the team was tanking, but maybe it was in a win later approach as opposed to win now. So now they passed that win later. They got their draft picks set up. That's how you ended up with a Christian Wilkins, a Tua in the draft, a Jalen Phillips, a Javon Holland, all these players, and now it's time to make that come together. You got that young talent, then you mix it together with the veteran talent, the star talent that you're bringing in the past 2 cycles, and now it's time to win now. And actually, I think of it similar to the last time maybe a South Florida team did something similar, would be the Heat before Big 3, but bringing in Shaq in 2004. That sort of gave them, with Shaq at that point in his career, he's 14-year veteran at that point, coming off a year where it didn't work out with the Lakers when they put together that Karl Malone, Gary Payton team with him and Kobe, and they didn't win the finals in 2004, lost in 5 to the Pistons. That breakup between Shaq and Kobe, Pat Riley swoops in, brings Shaq in, and then, hey, but for all intents and purposes, it worked. They won a championship in year 2, if you called it a 2-year window, because once that third year hit, then complementary pieces like Zoe and Gary Payton, they sort of fell off, and they were just too old at that point. Shaq, it just deteriorated from there. So they really won in that window. So that's what you try to do, put yourself in position in this short window, and then, you might have to pay later. But if it brings the city of Miami a ring, then it was all worth it.
100%. Furones, last year, the Dolphins season was deemed a success by pretty much everybody, right? Because they made the playoffs. Now, what has to happen for them to deem this season a success? I think you have to win a playoff game because anything else would be backsliding, right? So I don't think you necessarily have to get to the AFC Championship game, don't have to necessarily get to the Super Bowl, but you got to win a playoff game for this season to be a success, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, win enough games in the regular season first where you can challenge for the divisional crown. Well, it's going to be a stellar division the way it looks like with Buffalo Bills still returning. Maybe they're going to take a step back and the gap is shortening. But between the Dolphins and the Jets now bringing in Aaron Rodgers, it's going to be highly competitive. And you can never count out the Patriots with Bill Belichick there as long as he's there, even without Tom Brady. So win enough games in the regular season, put yourself in position where you can vie for that divisional crown so you can get that a home playoff game either in if you can get the 1 seed even better, but it's going to be a huge challenge with the Chiefs and the Bengals and such. But if you can get yourself a home playoff game in the wild card round, get yourself into the divisional round, possibly still at home in the divisional round, but that's part of that just putting yourself in the best positions. So, or if you are not winning the division, at least you won enough games where you're getting that 5 seed and you're the top wild card. Let's say, sure, you won 12 games or whatever, but the Bills won 13, or the Jets, whatever it might be, or both won 13 games and someone won a tiebreaker. Then if you're in that 5 seed and you get the lowest divisional winner, maybe it's Jacksonville again as an AFC South champ, and that would be sort of a preferable road game in the playoffs is just visiting Jacksonville in January as opposed to another frigid environment, like going up to Buffalo again, going up to a Cincinnati, a Kansas City in the postseason.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, Furones, I don't even care how many games they win in the regular season. I really don't. Now, as you say, you want to win enough to position yourself to, maybe get a first-round bye or go to an advantageous locale if you have to travel, but just win a first-round playoff game. I don't care if you win 16 regular season games or 9. Just win a playoff game. And look, here, let me ask you this also as we wrap up this segment. For this whole rebuild plan to be a success, must the Dolphins win a Super Bowl? And I bring this up. We've seen other teams throughout history that didn't win a title that had great runs for whatever reason. The Fab Five from Michigan way back in the day, the 5 freshmen who make it to the Final Four, Jalen Rose and Chris Webber and Juwan Howard, Ray Jackson, Jimmy King. They never won a title, but 4 freshmen get there, and then you get to 2 Final Fours. Tennessee football this year, they lose their quarterback Hendon Hooker to a knee injury. They went 11-2. You didn't win the title. Could you consider that a successful season? And so that's along the lines I'm asking with this Dolphins plan. I mean, if it gets derailed by a Tua injury, a Tyreek injury, a bad call, a missed field goal, could you still deem it a success, or do you need to win a Super Bowl? There's always caveats, but you need to win a Super Bowl. I think for this to be deemed a success, it can be a good rebuild. It can be you had a good idea, it just didn't work out. It can be that. But I think for it to be a success with all the resources, I mean, you've got Tyreek and Teron and Tua and Mike McDaniel and Jalen Ramsey and Vic Fangio. I think you need to win a Super Bowl. Again, it could be a good plan that it doesn't mean it's a failure if you don't win a Super Bowl. It doesn't mean it was a bad plan. But I think for it to be a success, yeah, I think you got to get the ring.
Yeah, it's a matter of perspective. Do you talk about the Dolphins in the 80s getting to 2 Super Bowls, 82, 84 seasons, and coming up short those times? Failure, or do you see, okay, those were still successful seasons? Do you think of Dan Marino's career, who was never able to win a Super Bowl, but obviously very prolific and made some playoff runs, but didn't have the whole team there for him? Do you consider that whole era a failure or not? Since Marino also never had much of a defense most years, or sometimes the running game wasn't there, could this be sort of that most complete team since would it be since the last time when the Dolphins were going undefeated in the 70s, 72 season, and then going back to back in 73? Could that be the most complete roster? Because we just had a hard time deciphering whether offense or defense was a better or worse unit, and the offense was such a standout yesterday or last year, I should say. And then we're sort of looking at the defense like, man, I might choose the defense in this. So, yeah, I mean, they're putting themselves in position where now the perspective is, yes, you want to go win a Super Bowl. The Dolphins haven't gotten there in such a long time that if they are contending and have a few years where they're maybe get to an AFC Championship game for the first time since what was the last one, 92, then could that be considered still a success? I know this city is hungry for another championship, because even the Big Three Heat, when you look at that, a lot of people might say, well, 4 years, they got to 4 finals, won two championships. Some people might actually call that coming up short for the expectations of the Big Three when LeBron James was on stage at the then American Airlines Arena saying not 2, not 3, not 4. Well, he actually only ended up with 2 during that time frame. So, yeah, it's a matter of perspective, and that perspective might just be, yes, it's time for the Dolphins to bring home a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and again, if you don't win a Super Bowl, it doesn't mean the plan is a failure or it was a bad plan. And look, and to take this thing another step, you know how many people Michael Jordan turned back and denied from winning a title, right? You got Patrick Mahomes here. So, it's not directly comparable. Mahomes is not Jordan, but he is the guy who sits there in the AFC, Tom Brady, swatting people away, right? And so it could happen. You could get beaten by a better team, but it could still be a good plan, but I wouldn't consider it a success. That's what I'm saying.
You put yourself in the best position possible. The teams that were contending with Michael Jordan in the 90s, Pat Riley with the Knicks, and then later with the Heat, he had his Jordan stoppers. These right. Dolphins have potentially their Mahomes stoppers on the edge. They brought in Jalen Ramsey for that reason. You got your edge rushers. If Xavier Howard comes back to form like he was before, then those might be your Mahomes, your Josh Allen, your Joe Burrow stoppers, like teams try to have their Jordan stoppers in the 90s.
Exactly, man. Hey, look, that's who's in your way, so you got to figure out something to get those dudes out of your way. All right, Furones, let's go to segment 3 real quick here, and health. Health is still a concern for several key starters, several key players. And then you get David Long Jr., the inside linebacker, who, as we said, he's missed 6 games each of the last 2 years with hamstring injuries. Is this a concern for you? Again, Raheem Mostert is 30, and Bradley Chubb has an injury history. David Long, Teron Armstead, Tua Tagovailoa. I like Greer's attitude. And look, you're at a stage where you haven't done much for the previous, 3 decades, you could say. So, throwing caution to the wind here, yeah, it could backfire on you. But I'm totally with the organization's thought pattern here of let's not be so cautious. We've got an opportunity here. Let's take advantage. We don't know how long this window is going to be open. To me, the window is open this year and next year because of the injury situations and the ages of some of these key players, Teron Armstead being the main one that I talk about with the injury situation and the age. So, yeah, go for it. I'm 100% behind this plan. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Screw it, but at least you went for it. So I'm 100% behind it. It is taking on a guy such as David Long a bad idea for Furones, or do you like it, and does it fit in with this defense and with this plan, and are you for the plan from that standpoint?
Well, I suppose this is also how you get yourself those deals, like David Long, like Raheem Mostert. Because I'll give you the Mostert example. If he produced at his yards per carry average, which is actually like historically high, right. If he qualified with enough carries, because he has missed a lot of time and wasn't always a staple running back. He had to work his way into rotations with San Francisco. Was a return guy when he started off, even with the Dolphins some years back. If he had his yards per carry average and was never hurt and was 5 years younger, Well, he wouldn't be available for $2 million. You'd have to pay him exponentially more than that. So, and same with Long. You wouldn't get him for what was it? I'm trying to remember now. 2 years, 11 in that range. So, that's how you get yourself some of these deals, is taking some chances on some guys with potentially an injury history. And sure, it does take a lot of holding up. A lot of things have to go right for it to work with and to keep these guys together. But you end up with a really stacked roster. And if players do stay healthy and things come together and any injuries are just kept are maintained to being sort of just short-term things that then you come back from, then all of a sudden you're loaded. This roster just is absolutely loaded on offense and defense because you were able to fit all these sort of bargains into the salary cap.
Yep. And Furones, I mentioned earlier, I'm still concerned about the backup quarterback experience and the backup left tackle plan. Nothing is set right now at left tackle. Again, Kendall Lamb and you've got some options and some things that could happen in the draft and in free agency. But let me throw out a crazy scenario. I don't want to label my scenario stupid. I'll let other people do that. Is there a way to put Teron Armstead on a maintenance program? Like, Teron has missed so many games, and I know you can't start him off the season on the PUP list, right? Or I guess you could, but you don't want to do. He misses the first 4 just in hopes he's going to be there in December and January. Really, that's what I'm asking. What can you do with Teron aside from crossing your fingers to kind of ensure that he's going to be there in December and January? I don't even know that having him miss practices. He didn't practice the second half of the year. He didn't practice regularly along with the rest of the team. He sat out. I don't know if sitting out training camp means you increase his chances of being healthy in December and January, because you could get injured in an October game, and that. So what do you do with Teron Armstead? And look, this is the guy who Pro Bowl player, one of the best players on your team, definitely your best offensive lineman, but one of the best players on your team, a team captain. You need him. Like, how do you preserve this guy from? Because I have, obviously, with my dumb maintenance program idea, I've got no ideas. Do you have any thoughts? Do you have any ideas on how to preserve Teron?
Well, I think he already is on something like that sort of maintenance program idea with the midweek with his practice schedule, never going on Wednesday and then Thursday and Friday, depending on how things go. The luxury in the NFL, if you call it that, is that you can operate with a maintenance program, possibly without missing games, because you can give them the week in between games. Whereas NBA, you have the maintenance program because there's back-to-back nights of playing games, or whether it be 3 and 4 nights or 4 and 7 nights, 4 and 6, well, whatever those most gruesome points in the schedule are. Some of these players need a day off in those stretches. So I guess the thing with the NFL is that, hey, you play once a week, then you can give a guy a chance to get on that maintenance program by not practicing. And a veteran like Teron Armstead is someone who you can trust if you do let him go through training camp on a maintenance program, not practicing on back-to-back days ever, and then going with that similar idea into the season. Now, granted, that still resulted in him missing a few games last year. But despite that toe injury hampering him since the start, I mean, you got to come out of it thinking it was a plus with how much he played, considering that from week 1 they had to maintain that toe, and then it led to other body parts. What was the shoulder, the pec was one of them. The knee, the hip, right?
The hip.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I might have been off with the first of the shoulder. Yeah, and I mean, he was still able to play a lot of those games, fight through it. So he's a consummate pro in that regard. I'll give him credit.
Yeah, and Teron kept telling us throughout the year, he's played with so many injuries throughout his career. He knows how to compensate. Like if the pec is hurting, he knows how to compensate. Or if the toe is hurting, he knows how to compensate. So, I'm glad they have Teron Armstead. I just hope that he's able to hold out. By the way, Tua taking the jiu-jitsu lessons, that's brilliant. A great effort by the Dolphins so that he can learn how to fall without that whiplash effect of his head hitting the ground. But look, other effective ways to preserve Tua. I like a running game and a stout running back. You got the right tackle, right, protecting his blind side, and really, if I'm not mistaken, though, Furones, some of those hits were from up the middle, right? It seemed like Buffalo was up the middle. Maybe Cincinnati came from
I
up
think
the middle.
He was rolling out a little bit out of the pocket, and Milano was coming at him. I don't think he was in the pocket.
He was rolling out. I think he was rolling out against Cincinnati and against Green Bay.
Cincinnati was in the pocket because he had the big nose tackle.
He got thrown down like behind left tackle or something. But anyway, the pass rush up the middle, because we've talked a lot about the tackles. The pass rush up the middle, are the Dolphins good there with Connor Williams, Robert Hunt? And, Eichenberg, sometimes we heard that there were some communication issues last year, and Connor was a first-year center having converted from guard. Those things got shored up later in the season. But, the pass protection, when you consider tight end and running back, do they give max protection enough for Tua, or the edge? Well, we know left tackle is good enough, and right tackle. Other ways to protect Tua: the running game, the right tackle, max protect. Like, what else can you do to protect Tua? He's taking jiu-jitsu. I think they're doing about all they can. Correct? I don't know, like, what else you can do for this guy.
Yeah, maybe mix in the run game more. I mean, it was effective from a yards per carry average standpoint, but Mike McDaniel, maybe he looks back on the season and says, okay, yeah, there are situations where I could have worked it in more. I know he likes to look at matchups and what he has in the box, because sometimes he'll run on a third and fourth and short, but not short in terms of like inches or one, because the defense might be stacked against it. But he's not afraid to run on a third and three, third and four, fourth and three. And then you've seen him call some good run plays in those scenarios too. So maybe if he finds more situations where he can go to the run, keep defenses honest, so that they're not always just attacking on the pass rush and pinning their ears back in all those situations. So, I mean, he's creative enough to come up with these ways, especially with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Maybe you work them into more outside rushes like he had with Deebo Samuel in San Francisco, something that last offseason was so heavily played up, the idea of it, but we didn't see it too much last year. And then Braxton Berrios is another guy that you could work in to similar situations. And the Dolphins have seen that, because I think twice he has ran for a touchdown against the Dolphins in the past two seasons. So the Dolphins themselves have seen it. So now he is within the organization. Maybe they find ways to work him into some fancy running plays.
That's right. He got dinged up after one of those runs last year, didn't he?
Oh, but he didn't, because he stayed he stayed down, or what was it? Yeah, but he didn't get back up to avoid a stumble.
Right, exactly. It's a smart man. You M guys, right?
Right.
Hey, and then as far as Tua and everything goes there, what are you expecting from Tua this year? He had the 25-8 last year and the 105.5 passer rating. Statistically, should we expect 30 touchdowns, or is the 25 kind of the line, and if he goes over that, it's a bonus? I'll tell you where I'm at with Tua. It's really not about the stats. I'm in the same place with Tua that I am with the Dolphins. I don't really care about the regular season. Like, I don't care about the Dolphins' wins. They just need to win a playoff game. That's kind of where I am with Tua. But I don't really care about touchdowns to interceptions. I care because they're necessary as a part of winning. But I don't care if he has 32 touchdown passes or 22 touchdown passes. He's got to figure out a way to win a playoff game, and that's where I'm at with Tua. Where are you with as far as stats and winning and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, maybe more important than seeing him throw for 30 touchdowns is that he is available for enough games to throw 30 touchdowns, and then put yourself in that preferable scenario in the playoffs to then go and then be available in the playoffs. You just had a postseason where he missed that game in Buffalo, and then have him available. Have your best version of yourself, your best version of your team available for that playoff run, and then and go from there. So sure, yeah, right now we are in a situation where we're viewing the Dolphins based on what they do in the postseason. Now it's time to win in the postseason, not just get there. You did that last year. Now you've had 3 years running of a winning record.
Yep.
Got a postseason appearance now. So another step. Now it's got to be winning in the playoffs, getting yourself to at least a divisional round and competing, being up there. If you're getting to a divisional round and losing a contested game to the Chiefs, okay, that was a solid step. But you need to be in that mix at least now at this point. And
right.
sure, if we're talking statistics, then I think 30 touchdowns should be the measure that we view to as first year under Mike McDaniel and missing 5.5 games, he got to 25.
Yep.
Then sure, if it's 30 with like a 30-8, keep the interceptions about the same. Although 3 of those interceptions came in that second half when he was playing through a concussion against Green Bay. It would have been 25-5 up to the point right before that. So, but if he throws a few more touchdowns, but there's a couple more interceptions mixed in, so be it. I would say 30 is the mark that you want to see him get to, especially when you have a receiving duo like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. There should be no excuse.
Yep. All right, Furones, let's wrap this thing up with segment 4, best move of the offseason so far, because the offseason's not over, and then the next best move for the Dolphins. And before we get into that, because we're talking offseason, and you brought this up, I'll give you credit, we got to congratulate our basketball teams, right? Nova Southeastern men, D2 champs, undefeated. women go to the Elite 8. FAU men, Final Four. Men, Final Four. Incredible basketball season. And look, Furones, for us living here, so we have that basketball success not long after we have what's probably going to stand up as the at-bat of the season in baseball, right? With Mike Trout against Shohei Ohtani, and right here at Lone Depot Park,
yeah.
Right? And so we had that, and then last Saturday, right? You have I'm trying to get this list right. Last Saturday we have in the Final Four, FAU in the Final Four. We have the Marlins were playing the Mets, right? The Heat played Dallas. The Panthers played Columbus. Inter Miami played Cincinnati. You had the Women's Miami Open Final, the Florida Derby, and Dwayne Wade getting the announcement that he made it into the Hall of Fame. What a great day on Saturday, right?
And the Dolphins won the offseason.
Oh, look at you, man. Always bringing it back.
You had to find some Dolphins connection to tie it all together.
Always bringing it back around. So, yeah, congratulations to all those things. You went to Houston to see your alma mater in the Final Four. How was that?
Oh, incredible! I had never seen a Final Four. I know you've covered a few, so yeah. It's just incredible to see the small basketball court in a football stadium. I'm covering all these games at big football stadiums, but to always have that Final Four in a dome football stadium where you can get more people in there, that extra floor seating, and it just makes the whole venue look absolutely enormous. And then kind of you have that unique twist on the basketball court because of sort of the depth perception for players too. It's very different. I can imagine shooting when you have the second deck or whatever, or the upper stands pretty close to the basket, and then just the not having that background where it's so far deeper on both sides of the court. It's really unique, and it probably makes for some adjustments too for these players. But I mean, just the venue itself, where you have the 2 semifinal games back to back. One ticket for fans gets you access to both games, and actually the tickets were pretty cheap because there wasn't a lot of basketball powerhouses that were in it. So a lot of the blue bloods in college basketball got upset. Pretty historic as far as underdogs getting there. No 1, 2, or 3 seed getting to this Final Four. So you had 2 South Florida teams, one of them a 5 seed one of them a 9 seed Florida Atlantic, and only its second ever tournament appearance going this far. So I was glad I was able to get out there, see my alma mater's first Final Four appearance, and then one that was historic for South Florida as well, with 2 of the 4 teams in the Final Four getting there. UConn was just too strong. I mean, it seemed double-digit victories every round. Was blown out by them, and they actually had the closest margin of defeat for any team that was in UConn's way. So props to Coach Hurley over there with with the Huskies, and what a comeback to get back there after a lot of years where they fell off since that last 2014 run. Pretty interesting that the last 3 times they even reached a Sweet 16 now, 11, 14, and 23, UConn has come away winning the whole title. Yep. So puts it into perspective when just got to its first Elite Eight, got to its first Final Four, and then you have this one team that's just every time they even get to the Sweet 16, they end up winning the whole thing. But props to all our South Florida teams.
Yeah, great, incredible run. I think I've done 5 Final Fours. My first one was 94 in Charlotte, was Arkansas, Nolan Richardson, 40 Minutes of Hell. And then my best memory was 96, I think it was, when Princeton beat defending champ UCLA, first round backdoor cut in Indianapolis. I mean, and you know how the whole arena gets behind the underdog. And so everybody in there, you come in just kind of neutral, and then as you start thinking, oh, they can pull this off, the whole crowd gets behind them. And I read where like the whole crowd, FAU at Madison Square Garden, the whole crowd is chanting FAU, FAU. That must have been sweet. So yeah, great offseason.
Yeah, and a great year for upsets, too. Fairleigh Dickinson going through as a 16-1 upset just the second time.
Purdue.
That was huge in opening things up for FAU, having FDU go ahead and pave that way. So after I know FAU had that tough first-round matchup, Memphis, that seemed like a tough draw. But to get through that and then get the 16 seed next and then work your way through Madison Square Garden, what a year for the Owls and Dusty May over there as well, like Coach L with my Miami Hurricanes.
There you go, baby. That's right. And hopefully Coach L gets into the Hall of Fame soon. He was on the initial list this year, and he'll get there. 2 Final Fours. He's going to get there. All right. Back to the Dolphins here. Best offseason move and best next move. They got Vic Fangio, they got Jalen Ramsey, they got David Long, Malik Reed, Mike White, Braxton Berrios, Dan Feeney. I'm forgetting the secondary coach that came with Fangio. Anyway, I know I shouldn't have even brought him up. I had his name on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, those are some of the offseason moves that the Dolphins have made so far. Are you talking about
Ronaldo Hill? You're talking about Ronaldo Hill, not Casper. I was trying to remember Casper's name, the safeties coach, but you're talking about Hill.
Yes, Hill.
Bringing back Ronaldo Hill is huge.
Right,
exactly. Bring him back because he played for the Dolphins, but bring him in.
Right. So a lot of off-season moves for the Dolphins. I'm letting you go first, Furones. What's been the best off-season move so far, do you think?
Boy, well, I can definitely narrow it down to it's got to be between bringing in Vic Fangio or Jalen Ramsey. And I think, I'd go with Fangio because then that's the first one. And I think it also, in a way, leads to the second one it'll work very well in Miami, having Jalen Ramsey work in a system that he's familiar with. So Ramsey coming over with the Rams, and when he first got there, then Brandon Staley, his defensive coordinator, runs the same scheme. He was an understudy of Fangio going back a few years. So just having that similarity where you could really work Ramsey into that star role the way he had been over there, where he's not just put him on the boundary and have him take out one receiver. He can do multiple things. If you need him to on a certain matchup cover the tight end more, he could go and do that. He could go and play in the nickel, cover a slot. He can come in and maybe blitz on a dime package or something. So there's so many things that you could do with Jalen Ramsey that I think Vic Fangio will take advantage of, and that it'll be very unique. So I think just getting now to this 2023 defense, what a lot of teams are running is what Fangio has sort of established over the years, and a lot of his understudies have kind of taken to different parts of the NFL, different cities, and so I'll go with Vic Fangio as the top move, with Jalen Ramsey a close second, and the Jalen Ramsey one being even better because you brought in Vic Fangio as defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on Fangio, and there's a couple of reasons. All the stuff that you just stated, and what Fangio does for your defense, but that defense can help the offense, right? The defense can get off the field quickly. The defense can get you turnovers. The defense can make Tua's life easier. And one thing that I hope happens, I hope that Vic Fangio and Mike McDaniel talk, and because I think that the biggest improvement the Dolphins need is from Mike McDaniel. He was a rookie coach. That's not putting Mike McDaniel down in any way, but he needs to learn. He needs to grow. We saw late in the season that our offense kind of stalled out. He was perhaps outcoached in some of those games, San Francisco, the Chargers. So maybe you can get a little scouting from Vic Fangio, and Fangio can say, hey, look, X, Y, and Z with your offense. That was the role that he served for Philadelphia in the Super Bowl. That he didn't help the defense. He didn't work with he told the defense. He told the offense what to expect from Kansas City's defense. That's what I'm saying. So maybe maybe he can do that for the Dolphins. So you make Tua's life easier, and you make Mike McDaniel's life easier, and you make life easier for the offense. So in addition to everything that you said, I'm hoping that Fangio can also help out the offense both directly and indirectly. Furones, the best next move. Now, this is a pretty wide open one. The best next move the Dolphins can make. Do you sign Christian Wilkins to an extension? Do you draft a right tackle? Do you draft a left guard? Do you sign a free agent at either of those positions? Is it a Zach Sealer extension, Connor Williams extension? Or is the best next move to just kind of chill on major moves until after June 1st? When that Byron Jones money becomes available? I know I threw a whole lot at you right there. I guess I'll go first on this one. And I don't know. I don't know.
I thought you were ready. If you were saying you'd go first.
Okay, you go. You go, man. You're ready. You go.
Drum roll, please. Here's the first big answer. He doesn't know. All right. I don't know either. I'm looking in the draft. I would look for a tight end. I like the idea of one of those second-round tight ends. If Darnell Washington's available out of Georgia, that would be amazing. Go and get another Georgia kid to start off the draft, or the Iowa tight end as well, the Old Dominion tight end. Those would be good choices with either that second, or if it comes down to a third, making sure bring in a young tight end that you can mold after you've already let Mike Gesicki walk in free agency. And you traded Hunter Long, didn't work out in 2 years here as a third-round drafted tight end from the previous staff. Didn't work well with this staff, either one of those. So now go ahead and the current staff, like Durham Smythe, he with his extension that was secured yesterday, that's a solid maybe starter for now. But maybe now bring in another guy who can be more of a receiving threat as well, and who Smythe can sort of take under his belt for the first year or two, because clearly this coaching staff does like him and his ability as an inline blocker. So I'm looking in the draft at tight end. The Dolphins do need another right tackle. We know they're not done yet there, so that would probably be the greater priority, but maybe just not on the timeline, because that might happen later on with a veteran post June 1 if some offensive linemen are remaining available, and then once that Byron Jones money comes into play, then you can sign a veteran that's kind of just been holding out through not holding out in terms of the official holdout, but just waiting until later in the offseason. Doesn't have to necessarily go through the offseason workout program and can work out on his own, and OTAs, minicamp, you're okay if they're not there for that. But then bring him in like you did with a Melvin Ingram last year as an outside linebacker, who, by the way, you still have to look into and see if at 33 what he wants to do. And then among the extensions, I'll go Christian Wilkins is the priority, of course, him going into that fifth-year option season. So make sure you lock him in long-term. And all indications are that the Dolphins are doing that at owners' meetings. We also heard from Mike Daniel that progress is being made, constant conversations happening. So I look for that as a key point that has yet to develop, that I think will in the coming weeks, months or so.
Yeah, I think the Wilkins extension is probably the best next move. And look, you might acquire a right tackle either through the draft or free agency. You might acquire a left guard through the draft or free agency. But I think Wilkins is probably the best move for the team, to show the team, hey, we've got a good guy. We're gonna lock him into place. We want to keep him, to show it to Christian Wilkins, to show it to the fans, and for your defense. I think that move is that's the next best major move that you can make. I think, drafting anybody in the second or third round, whether it's a right tackle, left guard, tight end, whatever. That's a major move, because that's second and third round. You should be a starter or a major contributor. But Christian Wilkins, to me, that's a guy you've got to take care of, and the ripple effect of that, those ripples go a long way as far as his performance and the message it sends to the team and everything like that. So, all right, Furones, and then our quick little bonus thing here: the Dolphins-Jets rivalry. When you add Mike White and Braxton Berrios and Dan Feeney, three very personable guys, is that rivalry? Can it be on? Like, the Jets aren't going to hate these guys. The Jets love these guys, and we like these guys who just came from the Jets. Didn't Brandon Shell play for the Jets also for a brief while? I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head, but I know that with Aaron Rodgers over there, and everybody here hates the Jets and blah blah blah.
Oh, wasn't Elijah Campbell with the Jets? Just throwing out another one, but yeah.
Right. But I don't know that the rivalry comes back, and I don't know that Ryan Fitzpatrick figures into this. We both teams liked him, but he's gone now. But I don't think that this rivalry is going to reach the level that it did, the hatred from the 90s, but and partly because of these three guys, but probably mostly because neither team has been that good recently at the same time, right? So I don't see the rivalry yet at this point, like, coming back to the fever pitch that it was in the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to compare it to that era. I remember when the Jets had that 8-game win streak in the series over the Dolphins, going through the 2001 season and the Monday Night Miracle and all that, and then finally, then in years to follow, the Dolphins, Zach Thomas, Jason Taylor, Ricky Williams teams were able to get over the hump against the Jets, but then those teams weren't getting into the playoffs, and then you sort of had sort of these last 2 decades that we've had in Dolphins football. So, and it coincided with the Patriots then taking over the AFC East for 2 decades. And then now it has been the Bills, but the Buffalo hasn't been able to take full advantage of it. And now we have these Dolphins and Jets coming back up to compete with the Jets. So I think overall just a mix for an interesting AFC East dynamic, that the Dolphins are going at it at the same time that the Jets are going for it. And the Bills are still trying to hold on to being the top dog in the division, but they see these two teams coming, and you always cannot count out the Patriots. I don't care what anyone says. You still have to worry about Bill Belichick and the Patriots. Although a stat recently, he's 3-10. This is from Peter King. 3-10 since Brady left against the Dolphins and the Bills. So that tells you a lot right there. Obviously, the Patriots are still beating the Jets all the time, but now with Aaron Rodgers coming over, then that could mean something different. But boy, if the Dolphins and Jets play 2 huge divisional games that make or break either team's chances at the AFC East crown, then yeah, that rivalry will be back. I don't care who's on which team, who's friendly with players on the other team. That's intra-divisional movement that rivalries are about. And then you start wondering what one player is communicating to his new team about tendencies on the other side, get into all of that. You wonder about Mike Gesicki going to the Patriots and Trent Sherfield going to Buffalo, all this intra-division movement. So it's not just those 3 Jets coming to the Dolphins. So it's going to make for a lot of storylines. It's going to be a good year for NFL writers.
Yeah, good. Hey, a good year for AFC East writers. So forget everybody
East
else.
Right, specifically.
Right, exactly. All right, everybody, glad that you could join us. That's your boy Furones. I'm your boy Perk. We will be with you every Tuesday at noon through the draft. So that's through May 2nd. Tune in, sunsentinel.com. We'll check in with you next week.